Thunder.
And AJ Radix.
And we are the PWX AWA Tag Team Champions, Extreme Thunder. And you're listening to the Smack Raw Podcast, baby.
Hi, folks. Welcome to the Smack Raw Podcast, your wrestling recap show where we cover WWE, AEW, and NXT recaps, reviews, pay-per-view predictions. I'll be your host today, Kyle. Boy, man, we wanted to record this last night, man, but the time change just got everybody tired. So here I am, 7 a.m. Eastern Time, waking up, just letting you know how Elimination Chamber went. We'll keep it brief. It wasn't the biggest show in the world. Wasn't terrible, but it wasn't the greatest either. So we'll get into some of the details. Before we do, though, thank you guys for joining us. Either watching live here early in the morning or watching the recap show. We always appreciate all our fans. And you can catch us on Podbean, Spotify, Stitcher Radio, Google Play Music, and Apple Podcasts. Of course, we stream live. Most of our shows, we're on YouTube, Periscope, Twitter, Facebook, and Twitch. We have a Twitch channel as well. You can always join in on the chat there. I got this new program over here, and it's going to combine all the chats of those live services, and it's going to show it right here. So if you do happen to join in on the chat on one of these shows, hopefully this thing is working. Make sure to leave a comment in whatever platform you're watching, and let us know if you are trying to reach out to us and we're just not seeing it, because this is a brand new thing I'm trying out for the show. Anyways, Elimination Chamber 2020, a pay-per-view that I don't know if is necessarily needed anymore, man. I mean, it's good, but I guess, when you cram it with Super Showdown, and then this, and then WrestleMania is less than a month away from this. It's all a bit much in as a pay-per-view, meaning, normally, would you spend $60 on this? Would you invest money on this show? Probably not. Like I said, though, it wasn't terrible. It felt more like, I don't know, maybe a glorified episode of Raw or SmackDown. That would have been great. Had this been just, how NXT and AEW, they have less pay-per-views. The takeovers and AEW pay-per-views are quarterly. I guess, so they have special episodes that feel bigger. Had this been one of those, probably would have been terrific, actually. But nevertheless, it's a pay-per-view. But we'll get into it, man. We're going to just dive right in. But before we do, make sure you hit me and the crew up on Twitter. We're very active, and we're trying to engage with our fans. We are at SmackDrawPod, myself at The Kai Tai Show. And, of course, join our Discord. Just hop on Discord, check out the SmackDraw Podcast. And you can go ahead and join in on the chat. We were lively last night. Jay Thunder sounded like an aristocrat. It was blowing my mind, honestly. I don't know. Jay, chill out, man. But anyways, let's get into the show. Kickoff show. We had a pointless match. Viking Raiders taking on Zack Ryder and Kurt Hawkins. This was the unannounced match. Is what it was. I think it was just an excuse to get Raiders on TV. Wouldn't have hurt, though, to put them against AOP. Maybe start building the feud there. But I guess you don't want to give that away for free. But it is what it is. Viking Raiders won a decisive win. Nothing crazy. The highlight of the kickoff show, honestly, was R-Truth coming out thinking that he was joining the kickoff panel for WrestleMania, just to realize WrestleMania is a month away. R-Truth, always endearing, man. Always endearing. But the show kicked off. The main card was probably with the match of the night. Drew Gulak taking on Daniel Bryan. It was a good match. Brought Gulak up, that's for sure. Story of the match was Gulak had an answer for everything Daniel Bryan was doing. He was throwing out constant reversals and just had everything. At one point, they both were locked in heel hooks. So with their free leg, they just were kicking each other. Some scary stuff too, man. Daniel Bryan getting a released German suplex landed right on his head. Looked nasty. Wondering, it looked like almost like maybe he was supposed to float over and complete the flip and land on his feet, maybe land on his stomach. But I don't know if there was a miscommunication. He fell over, landed right on the back of his head, folded up, and Gulak immediately went for the pin and oddly lifted the head of Daniel Bryan. And I don't know, maybe they were talking to each other, trying to figure out what to do next. But overall, very, very, very good match. Match of the night, honestly. And the ending showed Gulak going for his Dragon Sleeper, I think one too many times. Daniel Bryan was able to float over, capitalize on the one mistake Drew made, and lock in the yes lock. Drew passes out. Drew looked like a star after all this was done, though. Drew looked like an absolute stud. He was elevated. Daniel Bryan did a WWE exclusive interview afterwards where he passionately spoke about how he's always wanted this match with Drew, and the lead up to it was great. Drew completely impressed him in the match, and now Daniel Bryan is actually going to go get help from Drew. So it looks like the story is going to carry on, and this is easily the best thing coming out of the pay-per-view, in my opinion, is it took Drew Gulak, who was previously a joke on the main show, and in a lot of people's opinion with the PowerPoint presentation, and now he looks like a stud. And if used correctly, we could have another star on our hands. So keep an eye out for Gulak. If you like Gulak, get behind him, throw out hashtags. Let WWE know, because this guy definitely deserves some shine. He's got so much in common with Daniel Bryan, man. The guy's an awesome worker in the ring. I love watching him every time. We followed that up with the match between Andrade and Carrillo for the United States Championship match. Once again, I think the opening two matches were really the best. Not that there was like too many stinkers in there, but I think they started out the show very good. Andrade and Carrillo. Now, before we get into it, I mean, stop me if you heard it before, but the guys just have great chemistry. They have a really good back and forth match. Zelina Vega plays an asset into the match. Carrillo is a moment away from winning the United States Championship, but ultimately succumbs to Andrade. And that's pretty much the match. There was nothing new in this match, however, that we hadn't already seen on Raw or other shows. I'm hoping this feud is done, though, man. I really am. But I don't know what's next. They didn't set up anything after the match. Just back and forth, man. It was just a back and forth match. Carrillo got rolled up with Andrade holding the tights, man, and that was it. So I was wrong. I honestly thought Carrillo was getting away with the title. I really did. I thought so. I thought they were gonna pull the trigger on the kid, but we'll see. We'll see what happens for them all next. Man. We followed that up with the first chamber match of the night, the tag team one, going for the tag team titles. This is so the chamber matches were clunky, and there was some miscommunications in both of them. But I gotta say, Lince Dorado hit spot of the year so far in the match. The guy scaled the chamber and essentially was hanging from the top of the chamber and then did a shooting star press, landing on top of everybody. It was a crazy spot, but not met with some criticism. I'll get into it. You started out the chamber match between the Usos and the New Day. These guys got great chemistry. Of course, they have legendary matches. I think all of 2016, these guys just went back and forth. There's always magic between them. However, some weird stuff during the match though. But started off okay, fine, and they start off until Lucha House Party. They get into the match. They join in next, and Lucha House Party, they mix it up. These guys have a lot of highlights. For one, what was it? Grand Metalik was rocking Juventud mask. I think I want to see the mask he was wearing. I remember on Juventud before he took it off in WCW. I've always loved that luchador mask. I think that's one of my favorites. But the three mix it up. It was fine. Miz and Morrison are the next ones to come in. They slow the pace down. They work the heel magic that they have. Grand Metalik at one point nails a Hurricanrana on Morrison off the top of the pod, which was just nasty. Heavy Machinery makes their way in. Otis is obviously the biggest star of the whole pay-per-view. Otis is the man. The crowd were just at a fever pitch trying to get Otis to get his hands on Dolph Ziggler. Crowd was all about it, man. They really, really, really wanted to see that. And anytime the guys even got close to each other, the crowd got really, really excited. And it was myself included. That is probably, I think, what we were looking forward to more than just about anything else. A lot of us is just Otis's story, come to think of it. I mean, yeah, granted, the matches I was looking forward to was Daniel Bryan's, but as far as like storyline, I think that was the one we were looking for the most. Like I said, at this point is when Lince Dorado hits that shooting star from the top of the chamber, but the second after he hits it, Grand Metalik eats the pin. So you take a high spot at the cost of the team, and gotta say, man, don't know what you're doing. I do want to see Lucha House Party. I think is done. Like, am I wrong in saying that? That I think they've gone as far as they can go as a trios, which, let's be fair, wasn't that far at all, and have already overstayed their welcome. And I don't know what you would do with these guys post breaking them up, but I mean, it's not serving any purpose keeping them together. Hell, before the chamber match was even announced, I'm fairly certain most people had forgotten them. They're not too far off of the feeling of how the Shining Stars were before they left the company, which I believe they left the company at least. So I mean, if these guys are gonna get anything done for them, they just gotta break up and start going after something. I just don't know what you would do with them. So make sure to let me know that in the comments, or if you're in the live chat, go ahead and let me know what ideas you would have for Lucha House Party. But Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode were next out of the pods. However, everyone was already still laid out, and so a Heavy Machinery we're trying to get to them. But they hold the pod shut until they can get some help. They finally get out. They run roughshod, quickly overtaking Heavy Machinery, getting the upper hand here. At one point, Tucker does a senton off the top of the pod, which is just blew my mind, as big as that dude is. I think Tucker is doing everything he can to establish that Otis isn't the only one with a future. And I think Tucker gets a lot of flack from some people too, though. He does get a lot of flack. I guess not too many people are into the guy. But personally speaking, I mean, I like him. I do. I think he's very endearing, being the best friend of Otis. I have a hard time picturing what his character would be like without being that endearing friend, which is kind of tough. That part of your character is wrapped around another person. But I mean, that's kind of what being part of a tag team is anyways. However, I do like Tucker. I do really like the guy. He's big, he's athletic, he's endearing. I would be interested to see what they would do with him afterwards. I don't think he's a guaranteed success by no stretch of the means. But I also don't think the dude should just bounce out of WWE the second Heavy Machinery breaks up either. So we'll see where that goes. After Tucker goes off the pod, it looks like Otis is finally going to get his hands on Dolph Ziggler to mix it up. And he goes to ram Dolph Ziggler into the pod. Ziggler sidesteps him, and he goes straight through the pod and out of the ring and falls out. And this was shocking because we've yet to see this spot in an Elimination Chamber match. So this was brand new and kind of left me like speechless when I saw it because I wasn't sure exactly what I'd seen or if it was intentional. But it was very nice. Tucker tries to rally Otis back in, but Otis is laid out. Tucker goes off, starts taking on Rude and Ziggler by himself. He's fired up, but he ultimately succumbs to the numbers and is pinned shortly afterwards. As they're leaving, they're getting mocked by Rude and Ziggler some more, which allows the Usos to get the upper hand on them. Usos do a double splash off the pods and eliminate Rude and Ziggler right behind them. So this now leaves us with the Usos, the New Day, and of course their tag team champions Miz and Morrison. So at this point, this is where stuff kind of like was getting to me. My whole thing is with Usos and New Day having this found mutual respect. I would have figured that they would have worked more of a cohesive unit in this match. They're not part of the same faction, but these guys have made no bones about that. They have no beef with each other anymore, you know. So I figured that these guys would have worked as, you know, they would have teamed up against the other tag teams, which is what we got here. They completely beat down Miz and Morrison, but during the beatdown, there was a miscommunication. I think Kofi ended up hitting Jey Uso by mistake, and then that's all it took. They all of a sudden focused on each other and started fighting it out. At one point, Kofi goes for a crossbody off of the top of the pod, which I think was what got him out of last year's Elimination Chamber as well, because he misses and he is immediately pinned by Miz and Morrison. I think together they both pinned him. New Day's out. It's left between the Usos and Miz and Morrison. There was a bunch of creative heel spots here by Miz and Morrison, like trying to use the ropes and creative pins, which were all legal. And ultimately, they were able to get the Usos pinned and out of there. Not after a kick out of a skull-crushing finale, however. I think there was a kick out. That was pretty good, too. But all in all, the tag team chamber match, it was okay. it was okay, I would say. Like I said, nothing really blew you away on this night of the show. But there was little nice stuff in here. I think, like I said, as a pay-per-view, it gets harsher criticism than what it would have gotten had this been like a special edition of Raw or something like that. Had this been like a Raw episode, this would have been a great episode. But then, like, as a pay-per-view, however, it was take it or leave it, you know? Following the match, AJ Styles takes on Aleister Black. These guys have had this feud brewing. I've made the joke that Aleister Black really feels like a third wheel in a date, because this is really all about AJ Styles and Undertaker from what happened at Super Showdown. And, of course, AJ Styles mocking Taker's pin. And during this match even, he attempts a tombstone and sends a message to Taker as well. So it's like, you know, you got Black in front of you. At least give the guy enough respect to pay attention. Which AJ throughout the match, which is no DQ match, by the way, and Gallows and Anderson stand on the outside of the ring most of the time. And the commentary team tries to have to argue the legality of Gallows and Anderson even standing on the apron, which it made no sense. Like, you'd think that it's a no DQ match. You jump in. You just jump in, right? You jump in. You guys are heels. So there's no sake in, like, honor at this point. You just jump in. The second the bell rings, bam, 3-on-1, you know. But hey, it is what it is. It's wrestling logic, you know. It's different than real life logic. But the match was decent though. I will say that AJ Styles was attacking Aleister Black's leg throughout the whole thing, and really took it to his leg, obviously to try and neutralize the Black Mass. Some really, really rough spots. I mean, just it felt like everything hit with a thud in this match. At one point, Aleister Black ends up putting Styles through a table using a Meteora, which was a nice touch. Styles was taking kendo sticks and chairs to Black's legs. It was a hard-hitting affair, man. Just when Aleister Black was getting the upper hand, that's when Gallows and Anderson decide to jump in the match, start beating him down. And ultimately, this led to the lights going out. Lights come back up. Undertaker in the ring. He's got both Gallows and Andersons on their knees. He's choking them. And AJ Styles on the outside of the apron goes for a phenomenal forearm. Undertaker turns, meets him in the middle, choke slam, and then lights go out. They come back up. Aleister Black hits the Black Mass for the victory. The issue I had here was Gallows and Anderson were laid out. How were they laid out? The whole match, they didn't take a single bump. They didn't get attacked a single time. All Undertaker did was have him in a choke for like a second. It wasn't even like they passed out or nothing. He just was holding them at bay. And then all of a sudden, they were just completely laid out. Couldn't interfere anymore in the match. As Black was making his exit, you can see him on the just ring apron, just laid out, man. I'm gonna assume Rob just popped up in our chat. Hey Rob, how you doing? Anyways, following the match, we had the Street Profits. They retained their gold, taking on Murphy and Seth Rollins in a fair match. This is the recap of the Raw main event scene. It's what it was. It's been Raw's greatest hits for the last 3 months. AOP tries to get some interference in this match. They're thwarted off, and the Viking Raiders wearing some of their merch shirts. Towards the end of the match, when it looks like Rollins and Murphy are going to get the upper hand, Kevin Owens makes an appearance. He's out on the outside of the ring, and probably has the most creative spot for popcorn. Seth Rollins confronts Kevin Owens, and Owens throws popcorn in his eyes. And then, of course, Seth Rollins is pounced into the barrier, laid out. This allows Dawkins and this allows the Street Profits to essentially buckle bomb Murphy, get him back in the ring. Montez Ford hits the frog splash, and 1, 2, 3, your champs retain. It was fair. Like I said, nothing here. Everything here felt like a rehash from the TV shows. I know I'm a broken record, but everything feels like just glorified episode of Raw or SmackDown. It was nothing crazy, nothing new added to the match. It was just there, and it was fine. It was fine. Anyways, Strowman's handicap match. Oh boy. Oh man, Strowman, I feel for you, bud. I feel for you. Yeah, man, that Intercontinental title, I guess, didn't suit you too well. So, Strowman, it was announced before the show got started that Strowman's handicap match, whoever pinned him would ultimately hold the Intercontinental strap. So, there was some speculation whether if any 3 members between Sami Zayn, Cesaro, or Nakamura got the pin, would the belt go back on Nakamura? We learned before the match, or before the night started, that wasn't the case. Whoever would pin Strowman would become champion. My original thoughts in the predictions video, if you watch, which, by the way, I completely bombed predictions. My original thought was that these guys would get greedy between the 3 of them, and they'd break up their own pins, and that would ultimately be the downfall of the faction, and Strowman would end up getting the win. However, I was actually very wrong. The way the story went was Strowman was just couldn't take his attention off of Zayn. The whole match, Zayn just worked that antagonizing heel, mocking Strowman the whole way. So Strowman couldn't keep his full attention on Cesaro and Nakamura. And so ultimately, the second Strowman began the upper hand, he couldn't help himself. He'd go after Zayn, chasing him around the ring, stuff like that. And it was his downfall for sure. It saw Strowman get tossed into the ring post, and then Zayn ends up hitting that double suplex haluva kick combination. I do kind of like this, actually. I'm kind of a fan of this. It's a good move, but ultimately, Sami Zayn is the one who winds up with the pin and wins the Intercontinental strap, which is, for one, probably the best thing to come out of the whole evening. It's argument. It's between that and Gulak, I think. Between that and Gulak is the best thing to happen throughout the whole night, because this is Zayn's first title on main roster, and it's long overdue, in my opinion. I mean, hell, even Kevin Owens broke character on Twitter and reached out to congratulate him, which right now, they obviously have a long history of friendship and everything, but with Kevin Owens being face and Sami Zayn being just that snivy heel, you don't really see too many pats on the back, when that stuff happens. But yeah, man, long overdue. Sami Zayn is a Intercontinental champion, and by the way, his hair was crazy, and I love it, man. Everybody was telling him to cut his hair. Hell no, his hair looks awesome, in my opinion. Keep it up, Zayn. After the handicap match, we did go into the main event of the night, and boy, this is going to be decisive. How you look at it, and I think more people are against it than are for it. But man, this chamber match, for one, as a whole, was clunky and brutal. I will say, man, Liv Morgan essentially was just killed off of TV. I want to say I feel for Liv. If they had plans for her with her big return, they are long abandoned, and pretty much everybody else in the match too. Unfortunately, I don't know how to explain it, man, without trying to sound like a cynical fan. But they really did just completely sacrifice Raw's entire female division to Shayna Baszler. So the chamber match kicked off with Ruby Riott and Natalya, which these two, like I said, hard-hitting, very hard-hitting, stiff-looking stuff. The crowd noticeably dead for this match. However, the crowd was noticeably dead for pretty much the whole pay-per-view. We were going off about that in Discord, actually, talking about the crowd. I really figured of all crowds, Philly is one of those lively crowds, but tonight was difficult. Yeah. And but with that, afterwards, between Liv and Natalya, the next one in, excuse me, no, not Liv and Natalya, Ruby Riott and Natalya, Sarah Logan comes in, and Sarah Logan straight up tried to kill Natalya. I think she ran and did like a flying knee into the pod. Poor Natty looked just laid out, and then ends up hitting a cross body off the top of the pod, and Natty catches the legs like straight in the teeth, and it just was nasty. But it really was, man. It just caught the knee in the mouth. I thought she was gonna lose some teeth. She looked hurt. She looked really hurt afterwards. But once those three had laid each other out, next out was Shayna Baszler. So they didn't reserve Shayna for the last spot. Shayna came out, and immediately she suplexed Logan first, took her out with the choke, instantly tap out. 20 seconds later, she's got Ruby Riott up. Same thing, suplex, choke, out, and then about another 45 seconds later, she takes out Natalya. So in a matter of 90 seconds, she buzzsaws through the three women in the match, and then we get kind of like the Lesnar spot at the Royal Rumble. She's just standing around waiting, and we get some character development from Liv Morgan and Asuka. Asuka is frothing at the mouth to get her hands on Baszler. Asuka's taunting her the whole time. Liv looks terrified. Looks like lamb to the slaughter. She really does. Liv finally does come out, and boy, oh man, I mean, just Shayna Baszler just tears the girl apart, man. She tears her apart. She gets her in like the swing position. She swings her into the chains, swings her head first into the pod. It's a sickening, like, loud thud against the pod. It looked stiff as hell and brutal. Liv Morgan laid out, damn near crying. Like, looked like she was crying, man. Like, I legitimately felt bad. This whole thing is supposed to be staged, and I'm sitting there feeling bad for Liv. Essentially, Shayna drags Liv over to Asuka's pod, who's waiting and taunting and yelling, and she ends up putting her in the choke off of the top rope. So she's essentially hangs Liv. She literally just hangs her, and until Liv just goes limp and lifeless. She dumps her, and then you get like a solid, what felt like a minute of just Shayna Baszler and Asuka just taunting each other before Asuka was into the match. Once Asuka's in the match, it's a little back and forth. Asuka gets some offense, but essentially it's like another squash match. I wouldn't really put it squash match. It was just back and forth, but Shayna was able to cinch her up. Asuka did have a couple teases of hitting an Asuka lock, but ultimately she got cinched up. She got choked out herself, and Baszler won. And that was it, man. Baszler just buzzsawed, or in her words a couple weeks ago, chewed through the competition. And she literally, she essentially squashed out of the 5 other chambers, she squashed 4 of the 5, I would say. The most dominant performance in a chamber match. It was essentially a chamber squash match, which is a first. But that was it, man. And I see people, some people all about it, man. The Baszler fans from NXT, they're happy to see her getting her due. Other people just aren't feeling her, man. They find her boring, or they find how she just took everyone out as disrespectful. So I've seen it very polarizing. But I mean, she's gonna get booed. The problem is I'm trying to figure out who the heel in all of this is, because Becky Lynch. I mean, I know a lot of people are over Becky, and Becky's new overconfident act. I don't know if that's intended to get cheered. I mean, it makes hella good memes online coming out with crowns and shit, but this just overly cocky Becky, I've seen a lot of reports, is kind of annoying, and I feel like it's by design. And if you're trying to design her to annoy people, then she's gonna get booed, but so is Baszler. So it's almost like you're booking like a really nasty heel against almost like somebody with kind of like annoying heel tendencies. So I don't know, man. I don't know. Personally speaking, I love Becky, but after last night, man, I think Baszler's just gonna tear through her. But that was the Chamber pay-per-view. Overall, once again, like I said, if you just made like a special 3-hour edition of SmackDown and you put this on, it would have been fantastic. It would have been really good. But as a pay-per-view, which traditionally, you got to remember these pay-per-views, now the B-level pay-per-views back in the day, they charge you $40. I don't even know if this was worth 10. It's hard to say, man, when you look at what else you get for $10 a month, you know? It's difficult. It's difficult to say. But I don't know, man. And I wonder how this is going to leave if Baszler does win at WrestleMania. If Baszler does win, at this point, who would be next? How do you build a feud? She just took out Raw's division like nothing. Like it was nothing. Asuka, after Baszler literally had to go through 4 people before she got to Asuka. And Asuka still couldn't last more than, I would say, about 2.5 minutes in the ring with her. So how would you book her if she wins? That's the issue. Who are you gonna book her? You can't book her against any of the other 5 participants. You can't. No one could take it seriously. But I don't really know, man. I do not know how you would book this. So make sure to let me know in the comments, on Twitter at the Kai Tai Show, however you want to do it. Let me know who would you book her against, because that's what's confusing the hell out of me. Also, what's next for Otis? Is this feud going to WrestleMania between Otis and Ziggler? Where did Mandy Rose fall on this? She wasn't. I don't think we saw any bit of Mandy Rose this night. And also, do you think Gulak after this? I think those are the major things. What do you think is going to happen with Gulak? Is he going to get a push? Is he going to get some shine? The WWE backstage interview looked like He might tag team up with Daniel Bryan, which I'd be all about that. But we'll see. We'll see how that goes. Oh, I mean, that's pretty much it. What's happening on Raw tonight? So Raw looks like we're gonna have the return of Edge. Edge will be coming out to confront Randy Orton because we're officially on the road to WrestleMania. I guess the road feels started now. You in the chat, man? You said Rousey. Yeah, I can see Rousey. Wonder. It's weird though because she's supposed to be like. How would you start her? The thing about Rousey is you have the four horsewomen of pro wrestling and the four horsewomen of MMA, and you got Jessamine Duke, Marina Shafir, Shayna Baszler, but Rousey is the fourth member of the four horsewomen of MMA. So I don't think you would start off like if Rousey is reintroduced around Baszler, you don't really start off in a feud. I believe you start off as your faction. I don't know, man. I don't know about Rousey. But yeah. Well, anyways, that's our show. Thank you for joining me. I'm sorry if I was a little sleepy during the thing. I wasn't quite prepared to go solo today, but I tried to make my best of it. Not to mention, it's hard to get excited for the pay-per-view. It wasn't quite as endearing as I was hoping it would be, but nonetheless, Elimination Chamber is behind us. WrestleMania is ahead of us. I'm sure it's going to be a ton of fun. So make sure to tune in. Check out our recaps later this week of Raw, Dynamite, NXT, and SmackDown. But until then, y'all have a good one.